Hello, good evening and welcome to the Gooner Ramble and Arsenal Fan TV podcast. I am your host Giles, and on tonight's show we'll be discussing the glorious Saturday's festivities, which include paying homage to the great Dennis Bergkamp and an overdue thumping of Sunderland FC. Here to help me digest this week's goings on at Arsenal will be Callum.
Hi mate.
Right, and Rick.
How you doing?
Good stuff. And a special guest, we've got Nic English from Squawker.com. Good evening, Nick. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening, Giles. Thanks for having me on. Absolute pleasure.
Great stuff. We'll start tonight by basically asking you, Nick, what Squawker is about. You know, when you came about and what kind of stats and stuff do you do?
So, Squawker started off in June 2012 for the Euros. We were a second screen companion web app, which means that we visualize stats from games around the world in real time and provide them live and visualized on the pitch in ways which are understandable for football fans. So initially that's how we started off. Then we realized that maybe it wasn't as accessible as we first thought, so we started a Twitter account and doing lots of articles and to make it more digestible for fans. And then we started building tools like the rankings pages, the Squawker app, which is on the iTunes store, and the comparison matrix, which helps you compare players so people can understand stats more readily. The whole mission statement really is to make stats more understandable and more accessible for fans, because everything on the site's for free. So it's really about giving stats as much information as they want to play around with and analyse football in a way that they haven't been able to before.
Right, and it seems to be quite massively popular. Your stats. I mean, looking at your follower account, you've got nearly 300,000 followers, or
we're close to 280 now. Yeah, it's really exploded over the past year. We've grown pretty well. So actually, we hit 100,000 Facebook likes today as well. So it's going all right. It's going well.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Where do you get your stats from? And how many people are there in Squawker, or how many of you guys? And what is your kind of expertise? I mean, where did you kind of get the pool of expertise from?
What, me personally, or as a company?
As a company.
So our founders, Leo Harrison and Sanjit Atwell, they came from the world of performance and online marketing, and they had a huge passion for football. So they assembled a team of maths graduates like myself, extremely talented developers, and social media boffins who together could provide sort of the vision that they wanted for the company. That's pretty much the sort of the talent that we have in the company. Sorry, I forgot the other part of your question there.
What kind of expertise? What kind of expertise? I mean, what's your sort of expertise? What's your field?
I'm a maths graduate. Personally, I've somehow ended up in the sort of editor-in-chief role purely by just we wanted to do some articles, and then the articles got really popular, so we wanted to do more articles. So, that's sort of how I came about it. I had an internship lined up at UBS, and Sanj came knocking and said, do you want to work in football stats? To answer your question about where we get the data from, we get our stats from Opta. So Opta provide us with a feed of data which we render entirely ourselves and visualize.
Cool. Rick, you've got a question?
Oh, sure. I've used your site quite a bit, and I really like the comparison tool, especially comparing teams over a season. I think I know a lot of people get excited about game stats, but I'm more of I like to look at trends and overall season performance. I was wondering that I know you get a lot of raw data from Opta. I'm wondering how much work do you guys actually do to make it presentable and understandable? Because the raw data alone, I think, would just baffle people.
So we do a hell of a lot of work. For contractual reasons, I'm not allowed to go into the details of the actual packages of the data that we get, but what I'm led to believe, I understand that we actually process the data in a much rawer format than most other companies. So we get a sort of this data that comes in real time from Opta, and we process it sort of directly from the source, if that makes sense. So there's an enormous amount of work which goes into not only processing the data in real time in the match centers, but also then feeding that through into the tools like the comparison matrix, and also into parts of the site, into stuff like the app, which essentially, needs something completely custom to work off of.
Okay. I know there's some people on, there's another site called StatsBomb. I think they just gather their own stuff and try to apply advanced algorithms to some data because not all shots are treated equal and things like that. Yeah. Are there things upcoming, or are you involved in developing new ways of looking at data, or are there particular things you're working on you can talk about?
So in terms of things that are coming up, it's that I can talk about at least. I know the guys from StatsBomb, is Ted Knutson and Ben Pugsley and Colin Traynor. We talk to them fairly often because obviously they have questions about the data that we have on site because we're a good source of shot location data for them. So some of the stuff that they've done has been really, really interesting. I think it's a bit more in depth and sometimes a bit beyond what our users are asking for. But in terms of development, there's nothing I can really tell you about. Otherwise, my bosses are going to lynch me. So I need to be very careful.
So it's a matter of watch this space, is it?
Yeah, it's a bit of watch this space, but there's a lot of stuff in the pipeline, which is making our head of product very, very tetchy before the World Cup.
So what features of your website do you or even your app do you find are most popular? Where are you getting a lot of your attention?
So it's funny because there's things which are on the site which get a lot of attention that I'm sort of surprised about, and there's stuff which isn't very well known, which doesn't get a lot of attention. And that's mostly our fault, but some of the filtering in the rankings pages, there's a lot of depth you can go into. For example, you can compare all the defenders which defenders completed most interceptions in the first half in the Eredivisie, if that's what you want to do. So yeah, the rankings pages are pretty powerful, but since we launched the comparison matrix, the fact that we have two in-house data analysts, they insisted on having a per 90 metric, and that's proved really, really popular. The fact that you can break the stats down into total stats, average per game, per appearance, as it were, and then per 90 minutes. That's proved extraordinarily popular.
Yeah, that's actually the per 90 is something I really like. So what feature out there did you think was going to be really popular and doesn't seem to get much attention? Is that rankings filtering?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when we launched the rankings pages, it was a big build. It's a very complex tool, and when we launched it, it was fairly popular, but we expected to get more users sort of using it on a daily basis. So we've kind of had to rethink how we're going to do it, and I think we're going to update it soon, and I think users are really going to be blown away by what you can do with it, by how simple it can be to really get the stats that you're after, really.
Cool. Okay, Can I ask? Do you have sort of a data or evidence of which people from which clubs kind of use your data most? Do you have that kind of breakdown?
So no, with clubs, it's a very different story. A lot of clubs are very data averse. We've spoken to performance analysts at clubs who are kind of banging their heads against tables because they want the clubs to use more data. But some who do will use they will go about it in a different way, which I don't think they personally like me to disclose.
Right. Okay. Cool. No worries. All right. So let me ask you. You're an Arsenal fan.
I am a massive Arsenal fan. Yes.
What brought you to the club?
What brought me to the club? Well, it's funny because my mum's French, my dad's half French, half American, but I was born in North London, so it was a bit of a no-brainer, really. I was born probably about 2.5 miles away from Highbury Stadium, so yeah, it was kind of a case of just supporting your local club. I remember going to my first game. It was a game at home against Sheffield Wednesday. 1-1. Ray Parlour scored. I was really happy, and it was still under George Graham. Actually, it was the year before Wenger came in charge. So yeah, it's as long as I can remember, I've been an Arsenal fan. That's pretty much been it.
And you say that you don't really get to go to a lot of games these days. I mean, before then, were you going quite regularly, or?
I used to go fairly regularly. I was sort of like in like the junior Gooner scheme, like sort of on the fringes of the academy for a while, because I was freakishly tall. So that was considered quite useful. So I used to get discount tickets and stuff like that, but it was never, for a while, it's either been a bit too pricey or kind of a bit difficult to find the time with obviously working for Squawka. But I still try to catch every single game that I can.
Indeed, indeed. Okay, so let's continue on to yesterday's game. It's a very good result, very good performance. Callum, you were there. What did you make? What were your conclusions of the game?
Brilliant. We haven't really turned a team over, I don't think, since Norwich, and that was, October time? So, you know, when we went 3-0 up within 40-odd minutes, I was delighted. And, you know, I think it was the kind of a great pick-me-up after a very disappointing result in the week. You know, he rotated it a little bit, brought some fresh legs in. And, you know, they all played really well. And, of course, it was topped off with that amazing Rosicki goal, which I said to my friend who I was with, I said, you know, it was worth paying the 50 quid just to see that goal live, and it was really something special. And, you know, I think with this fixture sandwiched in between a lot of really difficult games either side, you know, it was nice just to get a bit of confidence up, to play some really nice football, and, you know, just it was a perfect antidote for what was a pretty emotionally draining result in the week. So I was very, very happy with the result and the performance.
Rick, a lot of people were surprised when Wenger dropped Giroud for 2 games on the trot. I think we'll all agree that Sanogo did very well in the 2 appearances he made. Were you expecting Giroud to come back on the weekend, and were you expecting him to give such a good performance?
I was kind of expecting him to come back. I think, I don't know if he had something physical, but he probably had some personal and mental things going on, as we all know. But he actually looked quite good when he came back. So I think he's probably been training well, and that's probably why he got the start. And it was an easy game to come back into as well. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Sunderland really didn't put up much of a fight. They gave us a lot of space, a lot of time on the ball, and we made them pay for that. But it was a nice game because I know a lot of the other top teams were late into the game looking for their 1-goal winners over the weekend, and we kind of got to cruise to a win, which was a nice change of pace. I kind of liked that. And I really enjoyed the Rosicki goal as well, not only because it was a great goal, but because I still have a man crush on that man.
I think we all do.
Yeah.
Okay, so, Nick, it was a great fillip coming on the back of the 2-0 defeat at Bayern Munich. Are you expecting the mini sort of load of fixtures that we've got? Are you expecting to collect maximum points going forward?
That is a difficult question. I don't know. I really hope so. I think of all the games, I think the really important one is the Chelsea one away. That's the really big game. If we can get a result there, then we're really looking at something quite interesting for the title run-in. I think if we can really cause them some problems, which I think we can. We've got a team that's talented enough now, and there's enough variety in our attacking structure. It looks like we seem to have. I don't know. It felt like something clicked against Sunderland. We figured out how to do it without Theo. Figured out how to run in beyond, and Giroud provides that pivot really well. But I think if we can get something against Chelsea, we can get a win. Ideally, I think it could be really interesting towards the end of the season.
Were you impressed with the way that we coped without that we went about our business without Özil yesterday?
Yeah, very, very. I mean, I keep saying it to guys in the office. I keep saying it to all the Liverpool and Man United fans. I said, both of you, all Man United and Liverpool fans would dream of having a player like Thomas Rosicki sitting on their bench. The fact that he's, a squad player. I mean, he's well into his 30s now. He looks very fit. He looks quick. He looks stronger than ever before. He's got tenacity. He's turned into a proper box-to-box midfielder. He can create. He can finish. He's a brilliant player, and he's nobody's starter for Arsenal. So, Now, I was very impressed by the fact that we can, quite clearly without Ozil, still have that creativity. Obviously, there's, Ozil's one of the top 10 players in the world, and he's created an absolute ton of chances this season, so he'll always be missed in a certain respect. But having a player like Rosicky who can come straight in and allow Cazorla more freedom, it makes it a very, very easy replacement.
Indeed. Callum, on Gooner as well, I've seen people discussing whether how we can play with Ozil, we can build a team around him. What's your thoughts on the current team? Obviously, we haven't got Theo Walcott, nor have we got Ramsey for the foreseeable future. How do you think we can get the best out of him going forward with this next run of fixtures coming up?
Well, I think it's clear that Özil needs to be managed in a different way, perhaps, than the rest of the players, because he's come from a league, two leagues, where he's not used to playing over Christmas. The intensity of the Premier League is something that's much higher than at Real Madrid, and Arsenal. He's expected to be the main man to step up and provide for us on a regular basis. So I think he's the kind of player that after he has a bit of a disappointing performance, it's best to perhaps take him out for a week. I know that you suppose he had a thigh injury, but I think it was probably for the best that we took him out. And, we've got so many creative players on our side, and I think the thing we lack more than anything is runners, which thankfully Oxlade-Chamberlain's provided a bit since he came back, that guys like Özil and Cazorla and Rosicky can lay the ball onto. I think we've got to pick and choose who we play and when. I think Wenger's done a good job of it the last few games. I think he rotated a lot for the Liverpool match when we won 2-1 in the Cup. I think the team he chose for Bayern was the right one, even though, if we score the penalty, don't get sent off, and it's a different result. And then, yesterday, one of the things I noticed was in the stadium was the fact that you look at Cazorla, you look at Wilshere, you look at Rosicky, and they don't really play in any position. They move. So Rosicky was popping up on the right wing, and then he was moving into the middle, and we play with a real freedom that a lot of sides, it takes a long time to be able to do that. So even without Özil, we were a very creative and a good side, and thankfully, Sunderland didn't really give us much to think about, and we took our chance as well. But Özil is going to be a big player in the running. Anyway, I think people are way too quick to write him off. He's going to be a great player for us. I think he's shown great glimpses so far this season, and I'm really confident that between now and the end of the season we'll see many great performances from him.
Mm-hmm. Rick, have you been left a little bit disappointed by Ozil's performances so far? I mean, the 42 million price tag, you expecting him to be the deciding factor in the big games and so on?
I haven't been too disappointed. Obviously, I was massively disappointed in that penalty attempt. That was pretty poor, but I think most people get caught up on Ozil's price tag and the way he started out the season. It looked great. 3 games in, we thought we really had something. But I think people's expectations got so high based on what we paid for him and based on how he performed right away that I think the fact that really he wasn't able to maintain that throughout the season thus far has got a lot of people frustrated. But I don't really think it's justified frustration. I think he's a great player. He might occasionally go anonymous in a game, but a lot of great players do. And then they pop up and win it for you when they get the chance. But he's going to be great. It's going to take a little time to adjust to the pressure and to the physicality of the league. It was good just give him a break, not just maybe he wasn't physically tired, but he might be mentally drained right now based on all the pressure that's being placed upon him. And I think we just need to manage that, and he will be just fine. So all in all, I'm not too disappointed, other than save that atrocious penalty attempt.
Cool. All right. Good stuff. Callum, you was at the game yesterday. What did you make of Arteta's performance? Because he's coming under a lot of criticism recently. There's people saying his legs have gone, that we should and do, and we should and could do better than have somebody like him in the team. Do you think he provides us with enough quality in that position when we need it?
Yeah, I think Arteta is a very underrated member of the squad. One of the things you do notice when you watch his players, that the reason why guys like Wilshere and Rosicky and Özil, when he's playing, and Cazorla have this freedom, is because Arteta is the man that's always there for a pass. He's always very positionally disciplined. And, I think when we look back in 10, 15, 20 years, you look back over the last few years with Arteta in midfield and realise how, good a player he was for us. I think he's come in at a difficult point in our history. He's done a good job. And whilst he isn't, that perhaps out-and-out defensive midfielder that we could maybe use, I think he's a really intelligent, disciplined player that perhaps has had a few dodgy games this season, but I still think he has to offer a lot. And I certainly hope that he doesn't leave in the summer, and that we still got another year or so out of him, because I think he is underrated, and because his job isn't perhaps. He's not going to score goals. He goes about his job very quietly. When he has a good game, people don't tend to notice, but when he has a bad game, people do seem to jump on him a little bit. So, I think he's very underrated, and I'm very glad that we've got him in the squad.
Well, Nic, he's Flamini's. Is Flamini due back next weekend? I think he is, isn't he? Or is he?
I think he was just rested because he played against Bayern.
Right. So with Flamini due, back in contention next weekend, we've got Ramsey coming back hopefully by the end of the month. Do you see Arteta's position kind of marginalised? Would you rather see sort of a Flamini Ramsey or Flamini Wiltshire axis, or do you still think that Arteta still has a big role to play this season?
I still think Arteta has a big role to play. I think he is an underrated. He is an underrated part of our squad. Just because his legs have gone doesn't mean that he's incapable of providing, making a worthwhile contribution to the squad. I mean, as Callum said, he's really positionally aware. He's always offering an option. He's never afraid to ask for the ball. His pass accuracy has been immaculate for the past 2 seasons. In terms of our strongest central midfielder, I think you could do a lot worse than Flamini and Wilshere together. It's very combative as well. But I think it depends on the opponent, and Wenger's going to keep rotating it as he has done for most of the season. I think nobody would be able to say right now what is Wenger's preferred central midfield pairing for Arsenal. I'd struggle to name my own, because if you're naming Wilshere and Ramsey, there's a worry that there's not enough defensively. If you're naming Arteta and Wilshere, there's a worry that there's maybe not quite enough bite or enough pace. So there's a lot of great combinations which we can use to our advantage against a lot of different opponents, I think.
Indeed. Cool. Looking at going back to yesterday's game, I want to focus on Giroud's performance.
Wait, before we get off Arteta.
Sure.
I wanted to mention a little bit that I don't know that his legs are gone. He never was very fast, was he? I mean,
indeed.
He's a bit like Mertesacker. His legs are never gone, but he's never had them.
Yeah.
Right. And I think what's missing for Arteta more than anything is Ramsey. Not that Ramsey is a defensive midfielder, but few players cover ground like Aaron Ramsey does. And I think he could, pace back and cover up for some of Arteta's lack of pace. And I think now that Ramsey's not there, Arteta sometimes, occasionally in a game, especially against like a fast-paced team like Liverpool or Man City, his pace gets exposed. Mm-hmm. And I think Aaron Ramsey covered up a little bit of that, and I think he's missing that. I also think that years ago when Flamini left for AC Milan, I think Arteta's custom built for the Italian league. I think if they switched places, if Arteta left and went to Italy, he'd have been a big hit. I think his range of passing, his intelligence would be huge in Italy. I think he just gets exposed by pace here.
Indeed, Nic. I want to ask before Ramsey went down. He must have been putting up some big numbers in terms of distance covered for the team.
So unfortunately, we don't get any off-ball data. So I wouldn't know exactly if he's covering a lot of distance. Hopefully, we're going to be getting that later in the year. But I'm sure he has. I mean, he has an unbelievable engine. He's one of those players. I mean, you remember the game we won against Norwich, the 4-1 against Norwich. I mean, he came on. He was supposed to be being rested, and he ran more than anyone else on the pitch in that very short in that short cameo. Now him and Henderson are definitely the two biggest runners in the Premier League. The amount of ground they cover is spectacular.
Indeed. You bring up a good point about the goal that he scored and the goal that Wiltshire scored in that game as well. And I want to ask you guys about Rosicki's goal. I personally, I don't think it's as good as Wiltshire's goal against Norwich, but nonetheless, it showed some great one-touch, and intelligent passing as well. And again, Giroud was integral to that move, wasn't he? I mean, he's the way he can, see a pass for an on-running player is quite special. He's done it all this season actually. It doesn't always come off, but when it does look very spectacular, doesn't it? Callum.
We're all waiting. Yeah. Yes, I'm a big fan of Giroud, and I think it's been tough for him this season because for a title challenging side to have only one really quality striker is criminal, really, and he's had to, both physically and mentally, he's had to carry that burden all year. So I think first of all it's good that we've got Sonogo now who actually looks like he could be some sort of challenge. And I think the evidence yesterday was there to see that a bit of a rest has done him well. He took both of his goals very well, good finishes, and obviously the assist he took was really good, and he has been doing that all season. He does a lot. The things he's good at tend to be things that are pretty unheralded. Fighting two centre halves for 90 minutes isn't always easy, and when you've got all these players buzzing around you, you've got to be very quick and forward thinking. And those little flicks and stuff. Obviously, when they don't come off, it's frustrating. But I think there's few strikers as talented as him, that kind of thing. And I'm glad to have him back, and I really hope that he can kind of go on a good run of form of goal scoring like he did earlier in the season. He scored against Sunderland in the away game as well. So it was good to have him back, and he looked much better, the best he has done for a few weeks yesterday, and let's hope that he can carry that through to the end of the season.
Cool. Nic, do you have him as your number one striker going forward now, or would you still rotate him with Sonogo depending on the opponent?
He's still the number one. I mean, he's had a really good season for us. Anyone who thinks otherwise, I don't think has been watching him enough. What I've been most impressed with is how much he's improved at not taking any nonsense from centre backs this season. The way he can hold off centre-backs now and control the ball and bring it down and bring others into play is exceptional. It was great to see Sonogo in those couple of games. It was great to see him put in such shifts and really close down the strikers and cause problems. But Giroud's a much better striker, especially technically right now. So there's actually no question in my mind that he should be starting as many games as he can.
Am I right to say that he's now scored as many or more goals than he scored last season?
He scored one less. He's got 16 so far.
Right.
So he scored 17 last year in all competitions. But I think in the league he scored as many as he did last year.
Right. So he's due to break that record.
So if he scores one more, he'll equal his record. So hopefully he can push on and maybe get 25 or so, which would be great. But
indeed. Right. Okay. So that wraps up the game. Nic, I know you have to shoot, so I'm gonna thank you for coming on.
No.
It's been a long time coming, hasn't it? It's been a long time coming and getting you on here.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Sorry, I've been a mayor. I know I've been a mayor.
Great stuff. All right, so thanks for everything, and continue the great work you're doing at Squawker.
Cool, thanks very much. You too.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Right, see you later.
Cheers,
Nic. Right, so let's continue with the Dennis Bergkamp statue. It was great to see him being so well received yesterday. No one would have thought any different. And he seemed quite emotional when he was making his speech. He gave so much to the club, and I think it kind of serves as a cursory tale to those that are a bit impatient with big signings coming in. him being the case in point, he started off pretty slow, and then he kind of, the first season, he kind of gradually grew into his role, and he never looked back from there on. So there's definitely sort of parallels we can see with him and Özil. But I want to ask you guys, what are your, looking back down the years and you've seen, footage and whatnot, what are your favourite memories of Dennis Bergkamp? I'm going to start with you, Rick. How did you come across him?
Yeah, I guess my favorite memory of Bergkamp was the goal in World Cup '98 against Argentina when he that goal and looking him up is actually what brought me to Arsenal. We didn't have programming here in the States, especially in the central U.S. where I was living at the time, so I really couldn't watch games. So I didn't really get to see Bergkamp play much as an Arsenal player. I'd get to see him at World Cups and stuff like that. But I guess since he's the man that brought me to Arsenal, I guess I just have to say, hey, that goal against Argentina was my favorite memory, even though it wasn't as an Arsenal player at the time.
Indeed. Callum?
Yeah, I mean, as I was saying to you before the podcast, I'm a little bit too young to have seen Bergkamp in his prime, but I've seen so much of his goals and his assists, and I think the one that can't be beaten is the goal against Newcastle, where he made Andy O'Brien look like more of a mug than he is, and
Nic established that, I think.
Sorry, yeah, and no, Andy O'Brien's he's the guy in the picture where the statue was based off. But yeah, it's just the way he takes it round him, and he always got the impression with Bergkamp that he was a step ahead of everyone else. When the ball's coming into him, he already knows what he's going to do with it before the players, the opposition players even begin to think about it. So, and that goal just typifies that. The way he, not only the vision and the balls to try it, but to actually have the technique to pull that kind of thing off, and then just have the composure to slide it past the goalkeeper. The goal against Newcastle. So it's that goal typifies what he's all about, which is just that creativity that so few players have, the technical ability to actually be able to pull it off, and then the composure to finish. And when he was at the game yesterday, he was talking about the guy who was interviewing him asked him whether it was what was the most important thing, and he always said it was your first touch. Being able to bring the ball down out of the air, and it allows you to do it, to score goals and make those passes, and he encouraged all kids, growing up to try that kind of thing. And I just think in terms of technique, he is unrivaled. He's such a special player, and he scored a lot of goals, but he also scored a lot of great ones as well.
Indeed. Reading his book, talking about his technique, the passage that always stands out for me is when Robin Van Persie was soaking in the bath, and he looked out of the window and he was watching Dennis Bergkamp, which I think towards the end of his career, his afterwards career, but he was watching Dennis Bergkamp do his shooting session or something like that, and he was waiting for Bergkamp to miss one attempt, and I think he was there for like 45 minutes or whatever before, and he still hadn't missed an attempt, so in terms of skill wise and technique, you're right, he's absolutely unrivaled. One, not my favourite memory, but a memory that always lives long in my mind is when we were playing, I think it was Juventus at home, and he must have had 3 or 4 players around. I think it was Juventus. He had about 3 or 4 players around him, trying to get the ball off of him, and he waited and waited and waited for Vieira to make the run. Was it Vieira? I think it was Vieira. I can't remember who it was. Somebody maybe be able to tweet it. But he waited and waited.
I'm watching it now, actually.
It was
Juventus.
Yeah.
2001. I can't quite see the video, so blurry, but he's got it on the right end. Oh, it's Lundberg he set it through to.
Lundberg, that's it.
And he just dinks over the goalkeeper, and he just waits.
Right.
Yeah.
That was brilliant, the way he actually managed to wait and wait and wait and wait until the run was made. I think Vieira was playing for Juventus at that time, actually.
No, 2001, it says here, so I don't think so.
Oh, so no, okay, he must have been an Arsenal player, yeah, great. And then another memory for me is, when we played Man United in the Cup final, our last trophy, I think he was playing up front on his own. We didn't have Thierry Henry, he was out injured, and it was a thankless task because obviously his pace had gone at that point. but to be able to manage the workload that he did in that final Cardiff sticks out in my memory. But there's so many. There are so many memories, good memories, and even the ones that aren't so great that I think people like Özil can take heart from. I mean, he missed the penalty in the '99 season. When Man United went on to win the treble, he missed the penalty that would have sent us through to the FA Cup final. Decided he.
Well, Wenger made that point, didn't he? He said, speaking about Özil, he said, another player who missed a big penalty for us is incidentally having a statue erected.
Exactly.
This afternoon. So it's going back to Özil. I think people have made Bergkamp comparisons with him with him a lot. And whenever you hear teammates talk about Bergkamp, they always talk about how they knew that if they made the run, they wouldn't have to look around. They knew the ball was going to find them because he was not only did he have the vision to know where they were, he had the ability to get the ball to them. And I think Özil is that good. And what we really need, I think we have to be realistic and say that the team we had back then with guys like Thierry Henry and Robert Pires is better than the one we had now.
Yeah.
But we're only going to improve. Guys like Walcott and Oxlade-Chamberlain, and perhaps
we're in the start of the journey, aren't we?
Exactly. Yeah. So I think Özil, I've always thought since he signed is the start of something. He's the catalyst for improvement. I think we're on the way up, and I think
that's what Bergkamp was too, right? That's what everybody said when they signed him. He was the catalyst.
Yeah. Exactly. He was, there's a lot of eyebrows raised when he joined Arsenal, and he didn't have the best of times from what I've read and heard. The same way that Özil. I mean, it's annoying you have to talk about this about Özil because it's only this kind of. I mean, I saw one newspaper that I wouldn't like to say, but they described him on the back page as a flop. I just think, are you Roberto Soldado's a flop, £26 million, so he can't score more than one goal from open play. That's a flop.
Yeah.
Özil has still got a very good number of assists, put a number of good performances, and players take some time to adapt. And I think Bergkamp the comparisons are very apt, and I think we're always a club. We're not like Chelsea or City that will just toss aside a £40 million player and just go and get another £50 million player or something in his place.
Yeah,
stick with him, and he's been playing well, and I think he will, with a bit of a rest. As he gets used to the football, is used to the physical side of the game. He's having training, extra training for that aspect of the game. He'll only get better and better, and anyone who's criticised him will look like an idiot in 6 months, a year, if not more. And got no worries at all about him.
Rick, going back to Bergkamp, though, I think one of the best things I saw about him last week was Thierry Henry was on ESPN here in the States last week. And he was asked, who was the best teammate you ever had? And Thierry Henry, without hesitation, said Dennis Bergkamp. And then everybody questioned him in the studio saying, well, wait a minute, didn't you play with Lionel Messi? Mm-hmm. And Thierry goes, yes, I did. I prefer Bergkamp. I mean, that's massive right there.
Exactly, that tells you what you need to know.
But I think it's not necessarily, if you think about the actual question as a teammate, as in a player you want playing alongside you, as good as Messi is, I really don't think you can ever get better than Bergkamp. As a strike partner, if you're someone like Henry, you've got the pace to go past players. To have someone like Bergkamp who can pick a pass better than anyone, it must have been an absolute dream to have played alongside him.
That's probably why Thierry loved him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
probably gives the ball to Messi and never sees it again. It's in the back.
Exactly. Messi's not exactly a greedy player, is he? But he's someone that can go and score the goal himself. And just.
And I'm sure that Ian Wright would probably have. He always has. He always infuses about Bergkamp anyway, doesn't he?
He does.
Irrepressible Ian Wright. Yes.
Exactly. From the moment he met him on the motorway station.
That's a great story. The way he tells it. Go and check that out on YouTube if you haven't heard it. It's Ian Wright telling how he first met him. I think on the other side of London or something as well. It was real coincidence.
Something like that. All right. So. I want to ask you, though, Cal, one thing that came to my mind yesterday, and I saw a few people on Twitter talk about, was the ground wasn't really full, was it? There was a few empty seats there.
To me, it looked pretty full. There was, at half time, it emptied out as it did, and when Bergkamp was doing his speech, there was a fair few people that weren't there. But no, when the game was being played, I certainly didn't notice any empty seats. I think a lot of people did leave early, which I think is.
Ridiculous.
Well, I don't know. When, for example, in the game against midweek against Bayern, I think it was a shame that they left to not clap the players off at the end. But when you're winning 4-1, and if people got long, and I'm not one to judge. If players have got, I stay to the end. But if you've got a long journey back to wherever you live, just leaving that 5 minutes early might save you half an hour of your journey and something. So, I'm not too. I don't like to be too quick to judge, but it was only really at the end of the game the stadium emptied out a reasonable amount. But from where I was sitting, which is everywhere in the Emirates, a good view, but it looked like the stadium was pretty full, and the atmosphere wasn't as good as it would have been against your Bayern in the week, obviously for obvious reasons because the game was won. But it was it was pleasant. Everyone was having a good time because we were playing well. But no, I certainly wouldn't have said it was emptier than normal, especially not by any significant amount anyway.
Cool. All right, good stuff. Right, so Wojciech Szczesny, should I say, got sent off committing a professional foul against Iron Robin. We then conceded a penalty, and now it turns out he's going to miss the next game. And if he's found guilty of making a rude gesture, he will miss a further game after that. Michel Platini has come out in the papers and said the free punishment rule is a stupid rule and it needs to be reviewed and revised. Sepp Blatter has said that there's nothing wrong with it. The sanctions are fit and proper. They're having a discussion. They're having a big meeting. I think it's an IFAB meeting next weekend. I want to ask you guys. It's a very, very tricky area, isn't it? I want to ask you guys what you think. I'm going to start with you, Rick. What do you think to the rule? Do you think it's unnecessary to punish a player more than, he's been sent off. He's had, they've had the penalty against them.
Yeah, I don't know that it's that harsh. I mean, it certainly seems harsh based on the way the foul was committed. But if he ran out there and he probably should have just went out there and just clattered Robin and put him in a grave. That would have been better, but it would have been different. But it's very hard to write rules like that. How do you judge intent? How do you do things like that? It's hard to write a rule around that. And if fouls like that are what you want to stop, you want the game to play out. You want a goal to be scored if a goal is going to be scored. You don't want somebody cheating and taking somebody down. Then yeah, maybe the punishment is too harsh, but there has to be a punishment. So if you want to stop it, you got to have that there. And I think the best example was the Rosicky goal. I rewound it and watched it a couple more times, and you can see Minone, when he realizes Rosicky's going to get to the ball before he does, he almost puts his hands flat on the ground. He almost got out of the way and let that goal happen. And I can't help but thinking he was thinking about, Szczesny got thrown out for doing this. I better not. So I think that's the impact it has on the game, and if that's what they want, then maybe it's the right punishment. I don't know.
But what I mean is it the triple whammy? Is that too far, or do you think that's just?
Well, again, if somebody was alone on goal and some defender just took his legs, on purpose, had no chance at the ball, we wouldn't think it was harsh. We'd think, hey, that's a red card. The guy's out of the match. There you go. I think it was the manner in which the foul occurred that it seems harsh. And again, I don't know that you can write a rule that will distinguish between the two. Okay,
I'm going to take it over to you, Callum. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, kind of pretty much agree with Rick in the sense that it's a rule. I think it's a necessary rule, and unfortunately, there's a lot of shades. We were talking about goal line technology earlier, and that's very black and white. The ball is over the line. There isn't. There's no shades of grey there. You're either right or you're wrong. With this, it's very subjective, and in the terms of just if we look just purely at the Szczesny incident, I would agree that it's perhaps harsh that, okay, you got sent off, which in a big game was a huge blow, and the fact we lost 2-0, largely because of the red card, should be punishment enough. But the fact that, obviously they got the penalty and then he is suspended, it does seem harsh, but then you have to think that if we got rid of that rule, if in the last minute of a game, a player's running through, the defender takes his legs away, sent off, he misses the last 2-3 minutes of the match, and the other team likely they don't score. So I think there has to be that punishment has to exist. Otherwise, you'd get some really unjust cases of players just being very tactical and snide without any punishment. Like happens in the game now, players will if they're on a counter-attack, opposition players will make a really obvious foul, even if they have to bear hug them to, and take the booking. But there needs to be a punishment there. And whilst it does seem somewhat harsh, I think that given the subjective nature of whether you could deem it was fair or unfair, I just think it has to be there. Even if it was disappointing that it really came to bite us in the arse, I think it's necessary, and we just have to suck it up and get on with it. And luckily, we've got a very good second choice keeper in Lucas Fabianski, so we shouldn't lose too much sleep over it, I don't think.
Yeah, okay. And that rule too, I think we need to think back too when it does work. I think Suarez in the World Cup years ago, intentional handball on the line, it's a penalty, you're thrown out of the game, and I think nobody complained about that, because it was deemed justifiable based on his actions. It's hard to write. But let me offer this. Maybe a slight modification to the rule is if a penalty is awarded, because you can be through on goal and deny a goal-scoring opportunity outside of the box. But if a penalty is awarded, maybe you only give a yellow card. I don't know. And maybe it's a red card outside of the box because you're not granting a penalty. I don't know.
That's something I would kind of agree with. I think when you're in the box, but again, it's still very difficult because, like, for example, Robin has a goal-scoring opportunity. Szczesny brings him down. You are given another goal-scoring opportunity with a penalty. So you think, well, maybe a red card isn't fair, but then you also get situations where perhaps the player literally has to just tap it into an open net, and you bring him down, and then obviously the penalty, you still have to beat the goalkeeper from 12 yards. It's more difficult than tapping a goal into tapping the ball into an open net.
Right.
So again, you've got that kind of conundrum where quite often perhaps a penalty is just as good a chance as the one that you've denied by fouling them, but you could inevitably you would get situations where the penalty is a lot harder to score than, and obviously if the guy goes and misses a penalty, then you think, is it worth it? So it's just
that's right back to the World Cup example with Suarez. That I think who was it? Ghana that came back and missed the penalty.
It did. The ball was going in. They would have gone in. It would have gone through. Took the penalty. They missed the penalty. Went to penalties, and then they got knocked out. So in that case, can you imagine if Suarez hadn't been sent off? I mean, even if the fact he was sent off was, he still got a lot of hate for it anyway. But if there wasn't a red card, it would have been even more ridiculous. You would have think, because that is a goal that is going in. He's punched it away. And then you've then got to take the penalty, which is still a good chance, but obviously they can be missed, and in the big pressure situations they will be missed quite a lot. So for me, I would just leave things as they are, because changing it, I don't think there is no kind of cleaner, more clear-cut alternative. I think whichever route you want to go down, it's going to get messy and it's not going to be perfect, and there will be situations where you're going to piss people off, and I just think that for the time being, I can't think of anything else that would work, so I think, to be honest, we should just leave it as it is.
Yeah, I mean, I want to go back to the point of intent, which is a very good point I think Rick made and yourself made. Szczesny didn't intentionally bring down Robin, did he? I think he went for the ball, he just was late, and got caught out. Whereas Marcin Dziemichelis definitely intentionally stopped.
But Szczesny comes out knowing that he could potentially bring Robin down. And perhaps you can say, well, he didn't actually come out meaning to do it, and Dziemichelis did. But again, you can't read players' minds, and there's such a big there's such a big grey area there that you can't differentiate clearly between what is an intentional foul and what's an accidental one, and even so, even an unintentional foul is still a foul, and you shouldn't just be, it's fine, you didn't mean it. I don't know. I think you're treading down a
very muddled, muddy.
Yeah, exactly. There's no
and then you're putting a lot of pressure on the referee at that point too, because
exactly
his discretion, then he's going to get second guessed till the cows come home.
You would be second. Yeah, the referees would be guessing by the end, and even if you had some kind of other some special panel to decide, you still can't tell. How often do we see players do something a bit naughty, and you say, well, only they will know if they truly meant it or not? Yeah. I don't think intent really, making a shitty tackle shouldn't matter. Even if you didn't mean it, you still made a shitty tackle. It's up to you. It's your responsibility as a player to be better than that, and you have to take the responsibility for it, whether you meant it or not. That's how I see it, anyway. Mm-hmm. And also with the Szczesny one, it's not clear, because he comes out rushing out in a very 50-50 kind of challenge, knowing that if he doesn't get the ball, he is going to bring Robin down. So even though he has taken that decision, even if it's in half a second to decide, that he will come out and take the risk of the penalty and a red card to try and stop him from scoring. And obviously it's...
Do you think that the 1 game ban is sufficient enough, though? Do you think, okay, you can't do anything about the penalty being given away, the red card? Do you think the 1 game ban also is sufficient?
Yeah, 1 game's fine. I don't think you should punish them for longer than that. I think they only give 3 game bans for dangerous tackles, which I think, or violent conduct, if there's not more, which I think is completely fair. But I think for that, it's 1 game's enough.
Yeah, I agree. 1 game, unless of course you're walking off the pitch and you make a wanking gesture, then you might get another.
Plus a fine.
Yeah.
I just asked the question because a lot of managers have come out and said, you know, they question the rule and they want it looked into and so on and so forth, and obviously Platini's.
But they don't offer alternatives, do they?
No, well, I suppose they'll tell you that that's not their position to offer an alternative.
No one's saying it's perfect, but I just think there isn't an alternative. It's just a part of the game. Unfortunately, whatever you do, someone's going to try and exploit the rule one way or the other. Just leave it as is for now.
Yeah, cool. All right, so let's ask who, instead of having a wanker of the week, let's have the player of the week. Callum, I'm going to start with you. Who's your player of the week this week?
I'm going to go with Thomas Rosicky. You know, he's a guy who, as Nick was saying earlier, you know, he's never a regular starter, but he's the kind of player you want in your squad. And I've loved Rosicky ever since he's been here. I remember when we agreed to sign him for the 2006 World Cup, and he scored an absolute blooter in one of the Czech Republic's games. And I was just like, oh God, this guy's playing for Arsenal next season. This is great. And you know, he's only scored 2 goals this season, but one of them was the one yesterday was just world class. You know, he was, and also with that goal, I think any young kid who wants to learn how to, you know, the whole idea of pass and move was typified by that. You know, he makes the pass, he receives it, makes another pass, keeps running, and suddenly he's through on goal. And he's such a clever little player. And obviously his goal against Tottnum in the FA Cup was pretty special as well. He loves a little dink over the goalie. So
he does indeed.
I was really, really happy that I was there to see such a good goal from such an awesome player. And I've just seen on Twitter that Wenger's pretty much just confirmed that he's going to be signing a new contract. So
fantastic news.
Hopefully he'll be here to see us win a trophy or 2 before he retires. But he's a great player, and I think he was one of the best players in the park yesterday.
Rick?
I'm inclined to believe to agree. Because I'm always going to say Rosicky was the best player on the pitch. I've loved that guy ever since we signed him. Just the way he makes things happen. He runs at defenses. He makes runs for other players. He's all over the park. It's really what we need more of. I mean, I think we have too many players that like to sit in pockets and wait on the ball. And although Rosicky does that as well, he makes more runs than a lot of the other players, and I think we need more of that. But since Callum already gave him that, I guess I'll have to go with Giroud, coming back from what is certainly trying, mental pressure, and having a solid performance like that, scoring 2 goals. I think that deserves a little recognition as well.
I'm going to go for Giroud as well because
2 goals and assists.
2 goals and assists, yeah. I mean, he not only did he. I mean, he had a terrible game up at Liverpool in the league game. Didn't see any time, or saw only a little bit of time in the cup match. Completely sat out of the Bayern Munich game. Couldn't have been, in the best of spirits. He obviously made the apology. Turns out he didn't actually bed the girl, apparently, or something like that. He's had
who knows?
Who knows?
Should have, if he's catching all this shit.
If you're going to do the time, at least make sure you do the crime, I guess.
Exactly. He's come back to really good effect. Hopefully this will spur him on, give him the impetus to carry on. And I think obviously with Sonogo being there, it's giving him the kick up the arse that not that he needed, but that will drive him on as well.
There's nothing wrong with some viable competition, is there?
Exactly. I mean, we saw it with Szczesny and Fabianski last year, and hopefully because we need him to be firing in goals in the run-in. So long may it continue. So yeah, he's going to be my player of the week.
I think it's worth knowing as well, his celebrations after he scored yesterday were a little bit muted. And you kind of got the impression that he kind of felt that he owes the club and the fans some better performances. And also I think he's very aware that he's let everyone down. with whatever he did do. We don't really know, do we? But I really hope that the emergence of Sanogo will not only allow us to rest him a bit more, it'll give him some competition and improve him. So, as I said earlier, let's hope that this is the start of another good goal scoring run.
Good stuff. Right, great stuff. So, I suppose we might as well wrap it up now. On that note, we've got a week off. I think we play Stoke away next, and I don't know if you guys have been on Twitter recently, but people are tweeting comments from a particular Stoke City fan site saying, the 67th minute, have a minute of silence for Ramsey, and what a shame he's not going to be playing. Due to Wenger and so on and so forth, and I think they were looking to give Flamini a bit of a hard time because of what he said about Mark Wilson. So
well, we weren't going to do a round of the week, but seeing as you mentioned the Stoke City fans,
yeah, you just got me worked up.
I read this shit last time we played them, and nothing. One of my whatever happens between now and May, one of my favourite moments of this season was Ramsey telling them all to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Because how small time does your club have to be for you to actively celebrate the injury of another player? I get it, they don't fucking like Arsenal, I don't fucking like them either. But I don't even know who half their players are, I don't give a shit. I think it's pathetic the way they treated Aaron Ramsey. And do you know what? I think it all stems from the fact that he didn't, when Ryan Shawcross called him up to apologise, Aaron Ramsey, sitting in a hospital bed, career possibly over, wasn't perhaps in the best of moods to talk to him. Mm-hmm. And when we played them early in the season, I read some of their shit on their forums, and they were saying how pathetic that was. And I just thought, do you know what? And I remember at the time, a lot of people were saying, poor old Ryan Shawcross, because he was in tears after it. And I just thought it was, you know what, when you do something like that to a fellow professional, and perhaps he didn't mean it, but it was completely reckless. It was a shocking tackle. Could have ruined his career. And for a long, long time, it looked like that Ramsey would never be the same player again. And I just think it's absolutely pathetic that their fans feel the need to actively celebrate the injury of another player. I just think it's such a... when Van Persie got injured, I'm not exactly crying tears for him, but I'm not fucking dancing around celebrating, because he's just not. And the thing is, Ramsey hasn't even done anything to him. He had, the worst thing he ever did was have the fucking cheek to get injured at their stadium, you know what I mean? It's just pathetic, and if there's any justice in this world, there'll be fucking a championship club next season.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, that was
they're terrible about it. They're terrible. All because he didn't accept an apology for getting his leg snapped in half by this oaf. I mean, get the fuck over it. I mean, it's ridiculous that they're carrying on about this. They really have nothing else going on. It's crazy. And, Shawcross in tears. Oh, poor Ryan. That wasn't the first leg he broke, either. He's done this before, and whether he meant it or not, I don't care. I mean, if he didn't mean it, maybe he's more like Lenny of Mice and Men. I don't know if you guys read that book. But
yeah.
Oh, no, I know.
I want to go play with the rabbits. I mean, that's Ryan Shawcross right there. I didn't mean it, but, neither did Lenny. He got a bullet in his head in the end.
Well, the saddest thing about it is that they're all plotting and scheming, right? And Ramsey's not even fucking playing. Like,
exactly.
you know what I mean? Christ alive. I really hope... If we're winning 3-0 in the last minute, just bring Flamini on and just say to him, look, you can have a few weeks off. Just go and put a 2-foot attack on someone's knee. Preferably Ryan Shawcross, and then perhaps we can start singing songs about them when he's out for 10 months, and Flamini can try and give him a call and be like, "Oh, sorry, mate, shit happens, I've done it."
Yeah,
exactly.
But I do hope Flamini plays next weekend, because that's a game you want.
Yeah, I think he will. I mean, let me rephrase it. I don't know. We can never preempt what the manager's going to say, but you want someone combative in there.
We should just put him in a cage all week and just poke him with a stick, so just release him onto the Britannia pitch and
feed him some raw meat or something. I don't know.
Oh, in all seriousness,
give him a long sleeve shirt too to cut off.
Yeah.
that'll get under his skin.
In all seriousness, now we need to go and beat him.
We do.
Can't give them the satisfaction, especially with Mark Hughes as manager.
I mean, they're quite decent. I think they beat Man United, didn't they, at home the other day?
But everyone's beaten. Well, apart from us, everyone's beaten. So
it's going to be a tasty match, though. But what's going to make me laugh is they're going to do a 67th minute of a minute of silence in the 67th minute. People are going to be wondering, why the fuck are you lot silent at this point in the game? I mean, because the person they're supposed to be, directed towards isn't even playing. So what is the point of that?
It's a shame though, because you know that Ramsey would get a goal.
Exactly.
And but we're not a team to be bullied anymore. We've got Flamini in the middle. We've got a fucking 6'7" centre half. Sanya is not to be bullied. Giroud as well. I think we're done with the days of us being bullied by Stoke are over, and I'm not afraid of them. I'm nervous about the game as I am with every game, but I think we'll put them to bed pretty easily.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm just watching the end of the Norwich Tottnum game. I think Tottnum just lost.
Oh, did they? What a shame.
Isn't that fun?
Isn't that fun?
It is funny when you think about it. Well, let's take a minute to talk about Tottnum. There was someone of Arsenal persuasion retweeted the match report. Do you know Sam Wallace of The Independent?
Yeah.
He tweeted it after Tottenham beat us 2-1, and it was something along the lines of another forward step for Tottenham as Arsenal slide into mediocrity. And that was less than a year ago. Now, since then, they've bottled finishing ahead of us for the first time in God knows how long.
For the second time, isn't it? Because they did it the previous season as well.
The funniest time about the season before was that they actually did finish fourth, but then because Chelsea won the Champions League, they still didn't get in, which is the most Tottenham-esque thing I've ever heard happen to anyone. And then, so back then we were, 8 points behind and whatever, made that up. They bottled it, sold the best player, spent £100 million on utter shit.
Down the toilet.
Eric Lamela, what's happened to him? I remember when they bought him, and everyone was saying,
I thought he was a quality player. And
exactly, everyone was like,
he was a ready-made replacement for Gareth Bale.
And also Soldado. People were saying, we should have gone in for Soldado.
I'd rather have Sonogo than Soldado. I'll tell you what, free transfer. This 26 million for a glorified penalty taker. Do you know what I mean? I mean, we could do one of them in the big games, but
26 million.
The thing is with him, every time he misses a chance, you could just see him, his confidence hitting a new low.
Exactly.
He fluffed a couple of chances today, and it's just hilarious, isn't it? And all this shit about, I remember we sold Elvis, but we bought the Beatles. It's hilarious, isn't it? And they've got this fucking Nabil Bentaleb playing in the midfield who looks like some reserve team player, and there's a fucking think where they were a year ago, and now they've got a fucking Arsenal fan managing them. That's how bad it's gotten for them. And you know what? Now they're 5 points behind Liverpool. They ain't going to catch them. They ain't going to catch them, and I think they're kind of starting to realise that another year. The thing is, as well, is that someone made the good point earlier on Twitter that they spent all this money, I think, thinking that they could get into the top 4, and that would sustain them for the years to come because they're going to be building the stadium. But all they've done is they've spent all the Bale money, and it's. And
they're no better off.
They're arguably worse because everyone else has gotten better.
Exactly.
Oh, it's just you couldn't make
it. It's a joke, isn't it?
So
it is a joke.
It's brilliant, and it makes it all the sweeter that I'm glad we lost that game last season because it gave them that bit of hope, and it's all the funnier the way the team's fortunes are going. Just to read, I read the article and how there's been a changing of the guard in North London.
At the beginning of the season, they thought they were on their way, and we were shit.
Oh, I remember some of it. It was just absolutely hilarious. It wasn't all summer. I mean, we had a shit summer till the last day, but they ended up selling Bale to Madrid so we could buy.
And the crying woe is me when they found out that Bale financed Ozil's sale to Arsenal was quite hilarious as well. Like, I think they put in a petition, isn't it, to end the agreement or whatever.
The agreement, which is basically we come along for all your best players. And then they'll say, can we have Morata? And then Real Madrid just hang up the phone. And they're like, thanks Florentino, we'll call you in 6 months when you want to buy. I don't think they've got any good players left, to be honest.
They haven't got anyone left now.
Michael Dawson for England, remember that? Oh, dear.
Yeah. The list goes on.
They're just brilliant, isn't it? So even no matter how bad it gets with us, there's always Tottenham to laugh at.
Exactly. And I suppose on that happy note, we shall call it a night. So thanks for coming on, guys. So it's a good night from Callum.
Yeah, good night.
Good night from Rick.
Good night, everyone.
And it's a good night from me, and that's been the Gooner Ramble and Arsenal Fan TV podcast. Be sure to join us again next week. Thank you.